everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek Buddies! Hey!
We are here with our midweek episode to talk about so many things going on in the world of entertainment, like some new trailers that dropped over the last couple of days, a Daredevil Born Again episode 4 spoiler review. Going to talk about the Colin Farrell Sergeant Rock situation. Is that going to happen? Is that not going to happen? And some COYOTE versus ACME news that dropped today, which is pretty surprising. We're going to talk about it all here on the Geek Buddies, but let's introduce ourselves first and maybe tell our fans where we're coming from if our background's a little different. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, host here in San Diego.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies, coming to you from my friend's office in San Francisco. Her office is much cooler
Look at
than
that.
my bedroom.
Yeah.
It's got little tigers on the wall.
It's so well lit. It's amazing. Yeah.
It looks like something out of the Clue Mansion right now. I mean, it seems like
I feel like I'm in, I was going to say, I feel like I'm at the Haunted Mansion. Like I'm like, foolish mortals. But
and this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor coming from boring old LA as usual. No Parker Brothers board games in my background.
Nothing happening in LA. We know it's a very quiet city. Nothing happening there. We got so much to get into. As I said, for those of you who are new, thank you so much for stumbling upon us or finding us or seeking us out. We appreciate you hanging out with us, whether you're listening to us on the podcast or watching us here on the YouTube channel. We appreciate it. The way we do things is we bring up 3 geek news items in the first section of the show, and then we talk about one big geek news item, and that's going to be our Daredevil Born Again spoiler review. Again, spoiler review. But let's get into the first topic here. Let's talk about this. That is Colin Farrell, who is apparently circling, taking Daniel Craig's spot and being Sergeant Rock in the Luca Guadagnino film for DC under James Gunn and Peter Safran. Now, you guys know this is a different part of the DC verse because he has just done Penguin, and now he possibly may be doing Sergeant Rock here for the other side of the DC universe under Gunn and Safran. As I said, this is scheduled to film later on in the year, possibly, but he has to balance his busy fall with second season of Apple TV Plus's Sugar, which is one of Shannon's favorite shows, and Edward Berger's movie, The Ballad of a Small Player. And of course, Edward Berger, who just did Conclave and was nominated for it. Sergeant Franklin Rock is set in World War II. It was created by Robert Kanigher and Joe Kubert. The character first debuted in 1959. And his talents are he can shoot down German fighter planes. He's really good without a gun. And he's got a combat antenna. These are the things that he's able to do. And it's being written by Justin Kuritzkis, who wrote Challengers and Queer. And look, they look pretty similar. They look pretty similar when you look at the situation here. But Shannon, I got to go to you first. Your thoughts on this. Sergeant Rock, Colin Farrell, yes or no? Are you in? And should people get confused?
No, people should not get confused. I'm going to take a very bold stance here because I know where my esteemed colleagues land on this argument. No, they shouldn't be confused at all. I mean, one, Oz Cobb looks way different than how Colin Farrell is going to look as Sergeant Rock. There is no resemblance except maybe in the eyes, maybe in the eyebrows. And when you're looking for a solid lead of a movie, look, I think Colin Farrell is a great go-to guy. Like allegedly Daniel Craig was kind of circling it at first, which I thought was a little weird because Daniel Craig's a little long in the tooth to be a sergeant. Jeremy Allen White apparently had been kind of associated with it. And I'm like, that makes perfect sense. Is Colin Farrell a little old for it? Yes. But if you have a sergeant in the field and you want your lead to be of someone of some esteem, Colin Farrell is a great choice. Now, the folks that are saying that this is confusing, I do not understand that point of view at all, because these are 2 separate universes and they're 2 separate people. And I imagine that if this does come through, the amount of time that they have to go through between filming and the promotions of this movie, it will be very, very established that this is not this is not related to the Penguin whatsoever. The new Gunn DC universe the train will have left the station at that point. There is no confusion here whatsoever. You guys tell me what you think and how you're wrong.
Michael, what are your thoughts on this? Do you like it? And do you think there'll be confusion?
My thoughts are it's kind of fun when Shannon eats his Wheaties.
Hey,
He's got the energy.
Confusing is the wrong word. I don't think it's confusing that people are going to think it's the same character. It's just more messiness for DC.
Yes.
There's a lot of amazing actors out there. And when you have Colin Farrell as part of a DC universe, like it's just, it continues the messiness of the Batman universe over here and the rest of the DC universe. Because if this was part of the bigger DC universe, even under makeup, you wouldn't do it. I don't think Josh Brolin should play another character in the Marvel universe after being Thanos. I don't think people would get confused, but I don't think you should have him play 2 roles. And even though,
like Cable,
that was Fox, and that was
these
Fox.
are
And
2
by the way,
different things.
my point is, I don't necessarily think that was the best idea ever. It was what it was. It was 2 completely different studios. This is one studio that's divided by the thinnest of lines that they can't even seem to get their Batman shit worked out. And yes, you're like, it's Shannon's explanation of it's 2 different universes. Batman's over here. He's under makeup. He's this. That explanation is going to come up every time you have to do this. Every time that Colin Farrell is on the promotional circuit for Sergeant Rock, he's going to talk about the Penguin. When he's doing Penguin Season 2, he's going to talk about Sergeant Rock. It's not impossible. He's not a bad person to cast in it. And I don't think people are going to go, oh, I think, is this supposed to be the same character? It's just messy. Like, and when you already have a universe that before it's even launched is kind of mired in, so who's Batman? How are you going to do this? Is Batman 2 ever even coming out? What is Matt Reeves doing? Taking the biggest part, the most successful part of one corner and saying, you know what? This guy should lead this movie about a comic book character that most people, even comic book guys, haven't heard of. It's just not the smartest move. I don't think.
Yeah. It's
But Shannon seems very excited about Colin Farrell as Sergeant Rock. So I don't want to take anything away from him because he's so enamored of this casting. So I'm very excited for him because this is the most adamant he's been about anything on Geek Buddies. So I'm going to let him have it, even though I think it's messy.
Look, Colin Farrell and Nicholas Hoult are going to be in the same cinematic universe. I couldn't be happier.
I mean, but here's the thing.
Well, they're not really going to be in the same. Well, okay, I guess they will now. Finally, yes.
It's quizzical to me on so many levels. Because one, why are you picking out of Matt Reeves' universe to bring him over into your universe? There are no other actors lying around. And why do they keep going for Brits? There must be some good American actors they could bring over to play.
Brits are better actors. Brits are better actors. Let's just be honest. Brits are better
well, fair. That's fair. But still, there must be some you can pull over and do this. So it's a little bit. But him plucking out one of the main characters and one of the main actors of Reeves's DC verse to possibly come over and play this character is real quizzical. For you, like you said, Mike, it's messy. It's a little messy and weird. What is going on here? You couple this with the conversations last week, Kim Masters' article in Puck News, where possibly Abdi and DeLuca are on their way out if these films don't do well in Warner Brothers. Safran moves up. It is James Gunn in charge of the whole thing. Is this possibly a situation where this is a hint that we're not going to see the Penguin Season 2? And I know Colin said, I don't want to see that suit again, but give me a call in about a year. Maybe I'll change my mind. So there's still play, and he's going to be in the Batman Part 2 if that ever happens. And so you're going to see these situations. So to me, it just seems odd. Does it mean that they know that maybe this is the end of the Reeves verse at some point? So they're moving Colin over as a thank you for what he did to put him in this notable role. I don't know. But in the vacuum, I love it. Go ahead. Yes.
Sure. I just think it's funny that way back when DC was getting started and James Gunn was like, I'm going to keep Viola Davis. Shannon was like, you can't do that. It's very confusing. You keep some people, you don't keep other people. I don't know what they're doing. But now he's like, Colin Farrell, he should be all the parts.
I have no issue with this. This is an Academy Award nominated actor, and I don't think I said it was confusing. I thought, like, if you're gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's not what they chose to do.
That is how the saying goes, actually.
Throw the baby out with the bathwater?
Yeah, that you should throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's
look. I got Colin Farrell on the brain right now. I don't know what you want me to say. But basically, no. I mean, I because they did choose to go on this sort of path where they're keeping some things, they're not keeping some others.
Yeah.
Choosing to cast an actor who will bear zero resemblance, I don't think that's as messy as some of the other decisions that they have made. I think this is the least messy of a messy situation.
It's not. It's not the messiest decision they've made by a mile.
Right.
But it is in the messy category. Again, like it's like, and look, that just to be clear, that doesn't mean there's not some inspired, like I have no idea what the Sergeant Rock movie is. I don't think anybody really knows what the Sergeant Rock movie is going to be. Based on the writer and director, is Sergeant Rock gay? Maybe. Who knows? But like, so if this movie comes out and it's amazing, and Colin Farrell is absolutely fantastic in it, to Shannon's point, I don't think anybody's going to go, well, that was an Academy Award winning performance in an A+ movie, but he's the Penguin. Like, if it all works, it works, and that's fine. But when so many other pieces, as John was saying, are just like, there's so much mired in what's going on, particularly when it comes to Matt Reeves' Batman universe, I just think it just adds to the pile a little bit.
And too many people are definitive about the fact that they're not crossing over. You have no idea what's going on behind the scenes.
James Gunn was definitive about it.
Yeah, but James Gunn is
I'm not saying that doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I do think that when James Gunn comes out and by all accounts, I wasn't there, but by all accounts gets prickly and says they're absolutely not doing that, everyone's going to take that and say, "Hey, we heard it. We heard it from the top. They are absolutely not doing it."
This is also the same guy that's whoever does the voiceover is going to do the live action. Like there's been a lot of James Gunn says one thing and James Gunn does another already over the last couple of years.
We got yelled at in the comments about that. What he specifically said was when it works or whatever. He walked that back a little bit.
Nonsense. He's been misspeaking or saying one thing and doing another already over the last 2 years. So I don't put any faith in what he's saying and what he's talking about. And Matt Reeves' interview with Josh Horowitz on the red carpet was an illuminating interview about where he's at on the whole situation. And there's a lot of reports saying that Reeves is waiting. Like Jeff says Reeves has submitted from his sources. He has submitted his script to Abdi and DeLuca, not to James Gunn, because the Batman is under Abdi and DeLuca, not James Gunn. And so this is an interesting conundrum. Is this a power play? Is bringing Colin over a bit of a power move as well by Gunn? I don't know. It's just all, as you said, Michael, it's just messy. Shannon, I do take your point. People probably won't get confused, even though I think it's pretty confusing because you don't know if the universes are crossing over or not. I get your point, though, that it's a great actor. If you can get him, why not? It's just, there's a lot of other things involved in this.
I'm waiting for the moment that we find out that Matt Reeves' Batman universe is part of the DC universe, and then Sergeant Rock walks into the Iceberg Lounge and has a conversation with Oz Cobb, and then we'll see how Shannon feels about it.
You know what? I'm on board.
You just stepped out of my time machine, Oz. Let's have a conversation. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that and as it goes forward. And we'll see if Robert Pattinson plays another character in the DC verse there under Gunn and Safran. We'll see if Zoe Kravitz shows up as Zatanna for Gunn and Safran. Who knows? Because clearly everything's in play now. And you don't know. Don't tell me that he isn't one of the most prominent characters. He had a whole series, and he was one of the main villains in the Batman. So Penguin is absolutely a main character right now in the Reeves verse. And so you cannot say, oh, he's just one of the many villains. No, he is up there right up front with Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz. Come on, people. Anyway, Shannon, you got a lot of energy for this. As Michael pointed out, you've eaten your Wheaties or something's been going on. What's going on here?
Well, what's going on is after, 2 weeks ago when I saw how much Magic Mind had helped Mike in his writing, I mentioned that, like, hey, I'm back in this acting class. I might give this a shot as well, because the scene that I'm doing right now is a 12-page scene from Glengarry Glen Ross. That is a lot of dialogue. It is very easy to mix up. So I actually have been taking Magic Mind as well. And this, you are seeing the results right now.
Yeah.
So this
Boy, are we.
this is a mental performance shot that you take in addition to whatever your normal routine is in the morning. If you drink coffee, if you drink green tea, like this doesn't replace it. This sort of adds to it. It supplements that zip you get in the morning. And as you can see, it gets you focused, it gets you motivated. It just helps you get through the day. I mean, we had our first run through today of this scene, and I was shocked how much of this dialogue, this very confusing dialogue, that I remembered. Like, this is backed by 200 scientific studies, and it is your daily dose of vitamin C and vitamin D. And right now, for all of our Geek Buddies listeners, there's a limited offer you can use that gets you up to 48% off your first subscription or 20% off a one-time purchase with code BUDDIES20. That's the numbers 20 at checkout. So BUDDIES, the numbers 20. And you can claim that at magicmind.com/buddies. BUDDIES.
Wow. Well, hell, I mean, this is a hell of a promotion. Both you and Michael bring in a lot of energy to it. So I might.
We all know I have a lot of energy, anyways. But this guy coming in swinging.
I know. I like it. Speaking of swinging, there is some swinging going on in Coyote versus Acme. Let's talk about this situation. Some new stuff. That's the best I can do. And I clearly need Magic Mind because that's the best.
Speaking of swinging, there's a lot of swinging going on here.
Well, a few months ago, we know that Warner Brothers shelved Coyote versus Acme, but new reports came in today that possibly they may have found a new home with a studio here that is deep in sale negotiations with Ketchup Entertainment. This is Gareth West's company here, who is the distributor and financier of Ketchup Entertainment. They are negotiating an all rights acquisition of Coyote versus Acme in the $50 million range. And remember, Ketchup last year rescued the Warner Brothers The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, which is out in theaters now. There's some debate about whether it's doing well, not doing well. I mean, it's only a $3 million opening, but the number of screens, over 2,000 screens, and right now it's still under limited release. It was going to be pulled, but now through social media and other people pushing it, it is staying in the theater for at least another week. But this is an interesting development. Originally, it was $70 million that they were charging people for. They were showing it. They did a screening for it. Nobody really bid on it. But now there's a $50 million situation happening here. And this, of course, comes on the heels of WB yanking all the Looney Tunes stuff off the Max streaming service, which is really surprising. So, Michael, you're a showrunner. You've been involved in animated for, God, since probably you were in diapers. Tell me your thoughts on all of this, and what do you think about the $50 million offer here, and does this make sense?
I think it does make sense. Look, I saw last weekend. I saw The Day the Earth Blew Up. It's cute. Like, I enjoyed it. I think it's very nostalgic. It feels like classic Looney Tunes in a lot of ways. I think that the beginning is really funny, and then I think by the end, it's like it could have been funnier. I think they left some funny on the table. All that being said, it's absolutely something that if you're a fan of Looney Tunes, you're going to want to see, and you should go out and see it, and it should be out there and available to view. The fact that Warner Brothers is basically doing a fire sale of IP and just like being like, hey, we have all of this super valuable IP. Let's do zero with it and sell it off as much as we can. Like, I just don't understand the logic. I think that for Ketchup, to your point about the debate, I don't know what the deal was on the distribution for The Day the Earth Blew Up, but I can't imagine it was huge. And I think whatever they're seeing based on the response to The Day the Earth Blew Up, it got, pretty positive reviews, kind of positive buzz surrounding it. People are generally feeling good about it. I think Ketchup is looking at this as their opportunity to say, we're going to become synonymous with the place where you can see Looney Tunes. And I think for them, investing that money in Coyote versus Acme, which again, won't know until we hopefully all get to see it, apparently is better than The Day the Earth Blew Up, is apparently very, very funny, is apparently very, very Looney Tunes-esque. Will Forte, was talking about how upset he was that it wasn't out there for the world to see. And so I think that it's a smart move on their part. I think it'll be great for fans of Looney Tunes to actually finally get to see this movie. I think that it's a shame that Warner Brothers has sort of decided to not be the home for Looney Tunes, which makes no sense to me. Like, when you think of the world that we live in right now, and it's what we do every week. You know, we talk about all the IP and Disney and Bob Iger. For all that Bob Iger does wrong, like, the thing that he will always be remembered for is bringing Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars under the Disney umbrella, so that Disney owns, in addition to the Disney animation library, which I think they do a really good job of kind of owning and touting and doing what they do with, they've got Star Wars, they've got Marvel, they've got Pixar, and they really make the most of that. That's where they kind of dominate at the box office.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, they have Harry Potter, they have Hanna-Barbera, they have Looney Tunes, they have Scooby-Doo, and you just see them sort of floundering, and you're like, what are you have a bench as deep as Disney's in some ways, and you just seem to not know what to do with it. And that's just dumb to me.
Yeah, it's quizzical, right? As you said, because with Harry Potter, yeah, we're doing a lot of kind of stuff. DC, we're doing a whole division. Warner, Looney Tunes, I don't know. What are we doing with that?
But even with that, look, I'm not saying they should do what Lucasfilm and Marvel do, but with Harry Potter, it's been years, and we're just barely getting to the point where we're going to have one TV show.
Yeah, right.
We don't have a Marauders series. We don't have Cursed Child, the movie. Like, there's a bunch of things that if Disney owned Harry Potter, for better or for worse, we would have the McGonagall TV series, the this, the that. Like, we'd have everything. And with DC, there would just be more movement on, like, you know, it's even what you're saying. Like, there's so much pressure on Superman that there's this idea that if Superman doesn't deliver, they're going to be like, fuck, we're out.
Yeah.
And now you've got all of this garbage with the Looney Tunes. So, yes, we do have a Harry Potter show coming. Yes, they are doing things. But again, when you look over across the street at Disney, even though I think Disney kind of saturates the market in some ways that are not smart, at least they're doing stuff with their IP.
Yeah, it's a good point. Shannon, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, Will Forte, do you think he's calmed down hearing this news? Because he said it was, quote, fucking bullshit. And I can't tell you possibly why the decision was made to not release it, but it makes my blood boil. Do you think maybe Will's calmed down a little bit after hearing the news that they might be selling this for $50 million? And to Ketchup Entertainment, who's already shown that they will put out a Looney Tunes movie for theatrical distribution in over 2,000 theaters.
Not yet. If that would be my guess, is when you go in and you actors sign up for movies with the intention that it is going to be released.
Yes,
and the fact that he signed up for this, however many days he shot, I'm sure he was excited. Will Forte seems like a natural fit to share the screen with Looney Tunes characters, to then have that rug pulled out from under you. My guess is that he would not be optimistic yet, because this is not a done deal yet.
Right,
I mean, once it is a done deal, I think he will be a great person to get out there and promote it. He sounds like he will be a huge champion for this movie. As to it happening, God, I hope so. I mean, from what I've heard, I've not seen The Day the Earth Blew Up yet.
Yeah.
For what I've heard, like, okay, this is an extended Looney Tune short. I mean, this is a 90-minute Looney Tune cartoon. If you like Looney Tunes, I'm sure it's probably going to be pretty funny. The vibe that I get from the stills that we've seen from Coyote versus Acme, this is giving me more of a Roger Rabbit vibe.
Yes.
And I think that is a really strong, I mean, granted, it's been years since we've had anything like Roger Rabbit. And granted, they've had their Space Jam films, but putting comedic actors next to Looney Tunes, God, that just seems like such an easy bullseye to hit. And in terms of, like, you know, once that kind of big public outcry happened, and there were the rumors that Warner's had gone out and be like, yep, we're going to sell it for $75 million. No counter offers, no negotiations. It seemed like they were trying to do a little bit of trying to repair the public reputation. And then I think they made it worse, because it was just like, you know what? Yeah. We hear you. We're going to give people the opportunity to see this, to give other studios the opportunity to purchase this, but it has to be After a year, they've kind of softened a little bit. And the fact that Ketchup, I mean, what they were behind Ferrari. I mean, they're kind of an up and coming unit. So I hope that this is what happens. I think people do really want to see this movie. Now, if this does happen, if Ketchup is able to acquire it, all of our audience members, we got to go see this movie. you probably got to go see it twice.
Yeah, at least.
So I hope it sees the light of day because, again, just the idea that Wile E. Coyote being in a courtroom, I'm like, that is a very funny premise, and I hope we all get to see it.
It's a shame we didn't get to see Matt Murdock defend him in the situation. But yeah, I mean, as you said, Shannon, originally they estimated the budget at $70 million. You're selling it for 50 here in this negotiation process, which at least they're willing to engage in a negotiation process in this situation. If they do sell it, then yeah, you hope Ketchup can get it out there, get a lot of promotion behind it, get a unique campaign behind it to get people in the theater because it's got to make money. Because right now, The Day the Earth Blew Up, that's a $15 million movie. Right now, it's only made $5 million globally. Will it have legs? Will it not have legs? You don't know. And as you said, Shannon, they're interesting films they've been involved with. Goodrich, which is on, ironically, on Max now, and I thought was a damn good movie with Michael Keaton. Hellboy, The Crooked Man, Ben Affleck's Thriller Hypnotic, Michael Franco's Jessica Chastain drama Memory. These are not ones that have burned up at the box office. So you wonder if they've got the right people in place, even if they purchase the film to get it out there and get the hype going and get people in the theaters to see it. That's what you hope for, because right now at this point, this is the most anticipated animated movie in a very, very long time because of all the drama and buzz.
Slow down.
There's a lot of drama, and people said
most anticipated animated movie.
They're like, this is like the Flash movie, the greatest animated film I've ever seen in my life. How dare they shelve this? So now I want to see what this movie is all about. I'm even more curious now to see.
Oh, that's a bad comparison.
I'm just saying, if it's any damn good, I want to see it. So we'll see. But good, but positive news overall. Especially for Will. Hopefully he's calming down a little bit. And Cena too, who's turned heel recently. So, and he's a bad guy in the movie. So maybe this aligns right now since he's just turned bad in the WWE. All right, Shannon, let's move on to some trailers. What do you got for us?
We got trailers. Two of them at the time of this recording. They came out today. And the first one is our latest look at Pixar's new offering, ELIO. This is about a little boy named ELIO who wants to so badly get abducted by aliens, and he ends up succeeding, and he becomes friends with another alien named Glorden. This trailer, the property when it was, or rather the film when it was announced, and the first initial teaser trailer, there was kind of a lukewarm response to it. There were some folks that were just kind of like, yeah, it looks fine. I feel like this trailer gives us a little bit more. I mean, we get a little bit more of Zoe Saldana's character. We get to see the way that the aliens and the Earthlings are going to interact. I laughed quite a bit during this, but I'll throw it over to one of those naysayers that I just mentioned. Michael, you were a little cool on this. Has this new trailer moved the needle for you at all? What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's not up there with the most anticipated animated movie, Acme versus Coyote.
I mean,
which I mean, that's the one that everybody is looking forward to. But yeah, look, I think it's a Pixar movie, so I'm gonna go see every Pixar movie that Pixar makes. But yes, I think the original trailer for ELIO, it didn't really grab because it was sort of about the big idea, kid gets abducted, but you didn't really know what's the emotional Pixar story. Right. You didn't really get into, what actually happens in this movie once he gets there. It's a cute little, the aliens think he's the ruler of Earth. But beyond that, there wasn't a lot to it. And I know that this movie has gone through a lot of changes at Pixar, and it's been pushed. I think this was the most successful trailer. I also laughed a good bit in this. I think the relationship between ELIO and Glorden is very funny. It's very cute. I like that Glorden is dealing with his dad, who is this, evil alien. There's a lot more to grab onto. So now it's like, okay, I see where this can go. Did this all of a sudden rocket up to me going, oh my gosh, this is going to be one of the greatest Pixar movies ever? No, but it definitely, and maybe I'm a little bit pro Pixar right now because I really enjoyed Win or Lose on Disney Plus. Yeah, but this definitely made me go, okay, this could be really cute. I don't think it's knocking my socks off, but so this also is not my most anticipated animated film of the next year, but it's definitely one I'm more excited about now than I was before this trailer came out. So in that respect, I think successful trailer.
Now, Johnny, writer-director Adrian Molina, who also is one of the Pixar minds behind Coco. He's the one that is masterminding this one. What do you think so far? Our second look at ELIO.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was really sweet. And look, obviously, this is a Latino kid. I don't care what he says, Latino kid. You can do whatever they want to say. And this is clearly a story he's trying to tell. ELIO Solis, that's his name, for God's sakes. And there was some pushback on this because it was a Latino kid who's a lead, from some of the people with the most warped minds who are not open to see a point of view from a Latino point of view, rather, in an animated Pixar film. We saw it in Coco, and it's one of the most amazing films they've ever done with the Pixar studio. So not only is Adrian involved, so is Madeline Sharafan, who I have enjoyed her work as well, as she's done some shorts, and she was involved in Coco as well, and Domi Shi, who directed Turning Red, which I thought was one of the great surprises to come out of Pixar that I thoroughly enjoyed. So I like the creative team behind this. I like the voiceover actors behind. There's always Aldana, Brad Garrett, who I love very much. So I like that we've got a good amount of talent here involved. And there's a sweetness to this. There's a cuteness to this. The first trailers, I think Michael's right. I wasn't 100% on board, and I was like, oh, man, this is going to give ammunition. But then I saw this trailer. I was like, this is fun. They even made an abduction joke, which was like really weird to leave that trailer.
That abduction joke got like a guffaw. I literally when he was like, I'm just laying on the beach because I want to get abducted by aliens. I was like, okay, that was good.
Yes, it was. I like that there's his aunt's a woman in the military. I like that angle to it. So there's a lot here. And at the end, there's the back and forth about the sound and him jumping into his mouth. All of it just really sweet, fun jokes. So for me, overall, this trailer 100% worked. And I like the animation. Really gorgeous, beautiful animation. So yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, this humor definitely felt Pixar to me.
Yeah.
This felt like some of those great Pixar jokes.
All the other stuff before it felt a little soft. And this kind of got back up to, okay, like this is, and by the end of the trailer, the promise of some of the alien invasion, and because his mom is in the army, army, like there just was a lot more to sink your teeth into in this trailer.
Agreed.
And I also just finished, or I'm almost to the finale of Win or Lose. And if any of you folks out there haven't started it, it is a very, very enjoyable series. And most of those episodes clock in at about 23 minutes.
Yeah, it's a quick watch. Aside from the ridiculous travesty that is the Kai former trans episode, it's an A+ across the board.
Agreed. Really good series.
So ELIO comes out June 20th. Our next trailer.
Mr. Wheaties down there, he's going to talk for 20 minutes passionately about Colin Farrell as Sergeant Rock. You mentioned one trans episode that gets cut. He wants to move on as quickly as possible.
Our next trailer is our second look at Ballerina from the world of John Wick. Ballerina. You know what? In that first trailer that we saw, they introduced Keanu Reeves' John Wick character, and it's like, okay, it looks like maybe he's going to be popping up just a tad. This trailer lets us know that he is going to be popping up way more than just a tad. You might even say it's safe to say he's back. Ana de Armas is, one of those fantastic performers who kind of went into a little bit of a valley. Like we haven't seen her in a minute, had such a promising, like firing at the gate with Knives Out and Bond. But this seems like this could definitely put her back in the limelight. She looks awesome, kicking ass. And this just feels like a fun action movie. It's also directed by Lynn Weissman. And so that can be a little hit or miss. But based off of this, Johnny, are you ready to go back into the world of John Wick with Ballerina?
I wasn't under Les Weissman, but if reports are to be believed, I am ready to go back under Chad Stahelski's confident hand here as the director. There's a lot of rumors are saying that he reshot almost this entire movie. And this trailer feels like a Chad Stahelski film. It does not feel like a Len Weissman film. So for me, out of this trailer, I'm excited to see this movie now. I was not in the previous trailers. They felt a little flat for me, and they felt like, hey, she's tough. We're telling you she's tough. She's tough. Hey, she's tough. This feels much more organic. We got more of the story here. Gabriel Byrne having more of a prominent role, something to do with an Irish gang or mafia or clan or whatever it is. Great. I'm on board with this. Bringing in Lance Reddick there is great. Bringing in Ian McShane is great. Bringing in Keanu Reeves to have a much more significant part of this trailer I thought was really smart as well. And as you said, Shannon, fell into a little bit hole, but not, I mean, Ghosted wasn't good. The Gray Man, nobody watched. Deepwater, that's a thing with her and Ben Affleck. That was a little weird. Blonde was the one. I think she was nominated for that for Best Actress. So she was trying new and different things. This is an interesting decision for her in her career right now. I hope this blows up. The fact that they've essentially created a female Baba Yaga with her is an interesting tack to take that feels familiar. So we'll see what their battle is like, because I'll be damned if John Wick is going to kill her. He's not going to kill his own friggin' spinoff. But I like the idea that they're going to battle in some way, shape, or form. So to me, coming out of this trailer, much more excited than I was in any of the others before.
Mikey, second look. Does it got you on your tippy toes?
Yeah,
technically you would say on point. Did it make you go on point?
It doesn't. I don't think there's not a lot of deepness to this trailer, but this is coming out in June and it's in the John Wick universe. Like, it hit all the marks for me. I think that again, we talk. I think a lot about IP. Obviously, we talk about it all the time on here. But John Wick is a very they've tried different things. They did the Continental TV show. They've got this coming out. I don't think everything they're doing is perfect, but they've sold me on the John Wick universe is a universe that works. Mm-hmm. It's a universe that we get. It's a universe that is hyper violent, but in a very artistic way. And that's like what the DNA of that brand is. And so when you watch this trailer, like what the trailer gives you, and again, whether the movie delivers on it or not, we'll see. But it promises what a John Wick movie promises you. You go to the Continental, you deal with this world of assassins, and whenever there's an action sequence, it's really beautiful and well thought out and surprises you in ways that we haven't seen before. And so it checked all the boxes that if you like John Wick, you will like this, go see it. So again, successful trailer. And I do think Ana de Armas is absolutely someone who can carry her own film, her own part of a franchise. So I think this is a smart move for her. Now it's just up to, is the movie good or not?
We will find out on June 6th when Ballerina hits theaters. And that brings us to our last trailer where you don't have to go to the theater, because we got the second look at Happy Gilmore 2. This one, we find out in the trailer that Happy hasn't picked up a golf club in a long time. Are he and Julie Bowen still together? We get a nice shot of Christopher McDonald's Shooter McGavin in his Shawshank Redemption pose, being rained on as the camera flies back. It's funny because in at one point he says he needs to have a more age-appropriate happy place, and the trailer kicks off. Now, for everyone that saw Happy Gilmore back in the mid-90s, his happy place was a little person on a tricycle, Julie Bowen in lingerie, and his grandmother winning at slots. It's going to be interesting because Adam Sandler, like all big comic stars, they do go through a little bit of a journey where as they keep making movies, their comedic sensibilities start to change a little bit. I feel like it's been a really, really long time since we had kind of an old school classic Adam Sandler movie, and we may never get one again. I think that's what they are kind of banking on. They want the audience to come back. Like this Happy Gilmore is back. Will they succeed? Not too sure right now. Mikey, what did you think of our second look at Happy Gilmore 2?
It made me think about the fact this came up a few months ago on our text chain about Will Ferrell saying that why he hasn't done Elf 2, and rumors are he and Favreau don't see eye to eye and didn't get along and didn't want to work together. But Will Ferrell's like, we never got a good script. We did this. He has a lot of things that it made me very grateful that we never got an Elf 2. Because watching this trailer, you go, I don't need this. I don't need this. And I think this is going to take what Happy Gilmore was and make me go, Like Happy Gilmore was of a time, and it was great, and it was when Adam Sandler was at his peak, and you can always go back and watch it and good, and like watching this and trotting everybody out, like, man, this isn't The Force Awakens. Like, this isn't like when you bring back Han Solo, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher, and you're like, oh, it's good to see them back together. You don't do that with Happy Gilmore 2. All that being said, it's probably a smart idea for Netflix. It's going to fall under the same category of Electric State, which is, here is a shitty movie that feels like it should be a good movie, and if it was in theaters, it would bomb, but enough people are going to watch it on Netflix that they're going to call it a win. So probably a smart idea for them, but it just kind of made me a little bit depressed.
Johnny, did Happy Gilmore 2 make you say Happy Gilmore boo?
I don't know what happened to you. I don't know what pooped in your Cheerios. This was a fun trailer. I was very happily into this trailer. I loved it. I am not a fan of early Adam Sandler. I didn't like Billy Madison, but I did like Happy Gilmore for what it was. Yeah, I don't know why people like Billy Madison as much.
Billy Madison is the greatest movie that Adam Sandler ever made.
Oh,
back to school, back to school to prove to Dad that I'm not a fool.
But you guys like Clue, so that makes sense. For me, Happy Gilmore was the one that I liked of the early Adam Sandler movies, and then of course we got really good stuff with Big Daddy and Wedding Singer, and he went on a little bit of a run. But I agree to a degree with what you said, Michael. Like, I don't need to see Grown Ups 2. I don't need to see anything of his worst oeuvre and sequels. No thanks. But this looks like a lot of fun, and this feels like City Slickers. It seems very clear. I still think they're together. She's just saying that maybe they're taking a separation because he's lost his smile. And like Patricia Wettig tells Billy Crystal in City Slickers, you got to go find your smile. She's essentially telling him, you've got to go find your smile. Pick up a golf club again. And his happy place are his kids and what his kids are doing and accomplishing. And as you said, Shannon, this is of a time for people who were watching this when they were in their 20s. Now they're all old. They've had kids. Some of them are probably grandfathers. And so this movie speaks more to them because Happy is aged. And so what is he going to find? Yeah, is it the creepy dude rubbing his nipples on the beach? Yeah, it's a little weird. But there's going to be more to come for this. And what are we going to get out of it? And how is he going to find a smile? And this kind of Sandler is sneakily the best kind of Sandler. When he is being sweet and he is trying to find where he belongs and he's trying to find his joy again, this is a Sandler we like. This is a Sandler we cheer for. One of the reasons he's successful is because people want to take care of him and like him and hang out with him and all of that. And you want him when he's happy. And I think this is where we're going with this particular movie. And so for me, the trailer worked a lot more than that teaser did that they dropped a few weeks ago that wasn't that great. This one looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, this is from director Kyle Newacek, who, very famously from Workaholics and What We Do in the Shadows. Those are both very, very funny shows. Will he be able to bring that humor back into the world of Adam Sandler and Happy Gilmore? Only one way to find out. Go to Netflix on July 25th.
I want a Billy Madison 2 where Billy is grown up, but his son is having trouble, but his son is played by Timothée Chalamet.
I think they did that. It's called That's My Boy. That was him and who was his son in that movie? I forget.
It was Andy Samberg. That movie should have been hilarious, and it just wasn't.
Oh, you're crazy. I laughed all through that movie. That was such a good film. Electric State. I'm an hour and 40 minutes into it, and I want to slam my head through a wall. I am going insane trying to finish that thing, man. There's not enough games on my phone to keep me distracted while I'm watching that movie. So I know one of you guys.
Somebody asked me if we're going to do like a Geek Buddies review of the Electric State, and I was like, oh, no. I don't know.
No,
we try so hard to find something to talk about.
Sure,
it was a rough one. A friend of mine, I will say, like, a friend of mine watched it, and we were talking about it, and he was like, he said exactly what I think critics of the movie are the most afraid of, which he was like, it was fine. Like, I enjoyed it. Like, I didn't love it. And I had to sort of explain to him why he felt that way. I was like, it ticks all the boxes of it's made by people who know how to do giant, big budget tentpole movies, and they check every box. They just check it in the worst, most non-inspired way possible throughout. And then you get to the end and you're like, this is a good idea. It should be so much better than it is. What's going on?
It felt
There
like
would-
Ready Player One to me, which
Oh,
left
wow.
me pretty cold as well.
Oh, yeah. And there's a great commentary, obviously, about robots versus human beings. The idea of one technological genius stealing an idea in order to make themselves the biggest person in the world and abusing that power for their own personal needs. I mean, there was really a lot of commentary in this Electric State that could have worked in a better film, but unfortunately, it was frustrating. And man, it was depressing to see Millie Bobby not be good in this movie because I love her in Stranger Things. And even Chris, to a degree, this was a rough watch on both their parts overall.
You know who my favorite person to watch in this movie is, though?
Mr. Peanut?
Stanley Tucci. Because Stanley Tucci, when he is doing paycheck acting, it's a very specific thing that he does. And Stanley Tucci is so good. But when he's doing paycheck acting, I've never seen somebody emote in all the ways you're supposed to with zero happening underneath.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing. And you're like, man, he is really just collecting that check. I will disagree with you.
This ain't Conclave, baby. Yeah, go ahead.
We don't need to go. We don't need to go. Well, it is on Conclave. He's so good. You're like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. And then in Electric State, and he's like, I am going to do this thing now. Twirl mustache here. I will disagree with you that there's actually not a lot of good commentary in this movie. No, that's the problem.
I'm saying there was commentary that would have worked in a better film.
But it's like that is the core issue is that you have this idea that Walt Disney built robots instead of animatronics, and then they became sentient and wanted rights. And you have this idea of humanity putting on these virtual reality helmets and checking out from reality. And you have this idea. There's all of these ideas that are presented. And then there's zero commentary to follow it up. There's 100%. Zero discussion about what does this mean. So that's where it sort of gets into like, I asked my friend, he was like, yeah, like Millie Bobby Brown, like she doesn't like technology. And so she's not doing the thing. I was like, yeah, why doesn't she like technology? And he went, is it something about her brother? And I'm like, could be. I don't know. They never say it in the movie.
Oh man, it makes me worry for Avengers. We'll see.
I think it makes everybody worried for Avengers.
Fair. All right, let's move on to the final section of our show. And I'll say this again. This is a spoiler review for episode 4 of Daredevil Born Again. This one is called Sic Semper Systema, directed by Jeffrey Nachmaninoff. And this is also written by David Feige. Hey, Kevin is throwing a bone here. And Jesse Wigato, who are a part of this team putting this one together. We get a lot in this particular episode here. We get Matt figuring out that Officer Powell did not kill Hector Ayala. We see Matt dealing with the after effects of that. We see Kingpin and Vanessa going through their therapy and discovering that Adam is in a cage there underneath, is working through his forgiveness for Adam. We see Daniel shooting his mouth off here over shots and then almost getting himself destroyed by Kingpin. But of course, we get a little bit of Mew stuff teasing what is to come in the series, I'm sure. But we get the big return of Frank Castle as the Punisher and confrontations here with him and Matt picking up right where they left off with their dueling philosophies on how to deal with the world. So, Michael, first I'll ask you quickly your overall thoughts on this episode, and then we'll get into the storylines of the thing as we break it down. So, what do you think of this episode 4 of Daredevil Born Again?
This episode pushed my buttons a little bit. We've really reached the point where with this series, the stuff that works really well.
Yep.
And the stuff that doesn't work really doesn't work. So like we're sort of like with this episode in particular, like with the White Tiger stuff over episodes like 2 and 3, like that was a really interesting seeing a superhero court case in the Marvel universe. Like there was more going on that I liked than I didn't. And this episode sort of was a 50-50 split for me. Like there's moments, everything with Punisher and Matt fucking through the roof, like loved. It was electric. It was amazing. And thematically, some of the ideas that they're exploring are really interesting. And then some things just like fell like a lead balloon. Like I'm looking at you, Muse. And there's just stuff that I'm just like, eh. So it's really, this show is very uneven. But like when it's working, it's really working. And then there's other, it's just like rough.
Yeah, I have to agree with you because I think there'll be all these think pieces this week. They're like, oh, if this had come out after Captain America 4, there'd be much more viewership. Nah, man, the show's uneven. That's why people aren't watching it as strongly or as much as they would in the numbers in the past. Shannon, your thoughts overall on this particular episode? What'd you think of it overall?
I mean, watching it, it kind of felt like I was watching a heart monitor. Like you would have a flat line and a bump, bump, and then Frank Castle comes on throwing bang, and then he starts to train at the end, and I'm kind of like, oh, okay. There are aspects of the show that I just don't really care about, and I think something you spoke to already, Johnny, having seen the show, was the supporting characters don't have a lot of development, and
not a lot of real estate.
Yeah. Kirsten, you know, she's not. It's not like she's bad. She's just kind of nothing. I mean, even to a degree, Matt's Margarita Levieva, even her character to agree, there's not a whole lot there. I don't really care about Fisk and Vanessa's therapy. Like I'm just not that. I'm not that interested in this relationship right now. I mean, when we get to the end and he's having dinner and you see Adam's behind a cage, I'm like, okay, this is a little more interesting. I don't have the issue with Muse because I don't feel like, again, there was anything there. I'm basing everything off of visuals, and the visual, I'm like, you look scary as shit. But it's the type of thing that, I mean, I'm going to keep watching the show. Absolutely. Because again, the moments that you all both already talked about, the moments that they do get right, they're so right and they're so good. But there is a supporting character issue, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, Kirsten and Matt bring up financial issues with the firm, and then you're like, okay, what are we going to do about it? Oh, we got other things to worry about. Okay, all right. And so it just gets confusing that they're not giving them more. And then Cherry like pops in and pops out. What's the relationship? What are they doing? Where is this coming from? How was this established? What are the ins and outs of this relationship? And I know I get shit all the time. It's like, oh, secondary characters. Here goes Rocha again. But it's so important. It enriches the show if you do it right. So it's frustrating. Yeah. So let's hit with that. Let's start with the two storylines. Or three, we'll hit three storylines. Wilson and Vanessa here. Michael, Vanessa family issues were triggered by Fisk's absence. We learned this in the therapy, that it was about her dad and her mom and all this stuff from that, which is why she ran to Adam, a sensitive artist outside of the world of Fisk. And of course, the sensitive artist is actually tied up in a cell where Fisk claims that they had a clarifying dialogue about their affair with Vanessa and says some crap about forgiveness, and he's focused on it. And they both tell Heather that they don't know where Adam is. Is that true that they both don't know? I don't know. And Heather asks Vanessa if she feels safe in her marriage, and Vanessa, almost in a smirking way, responds that she is. Kingpin knows that she asked her that question, so he's on to Heather a little bit. But on the Kingpin side, he still has plans for Red Hook that we see here. He's still listening to Sheila for now, but you sense that's only going to last for so long. But what is he planning? And we have a great scene with him listening to two different renditions of We Built This City, one of the worst Starship songs ever, trying not to go crazy, which I thought was a great little element. But I thought we had this fun scene with Daniel, where Daniel shoots his mouth off having shots with BB and reveals all this stuff, which BB uses. We get Mayor Garbage. We get him as a union buster. And we see the old Kingpin come out, Mike, in the interaction with Daniel. And it looks like he's probably going to kill Daniel. But then Daniel just repeatedly falls on his sword in front of him to get him to forgive him. And Wilson almost sees a little bit of himself in Daniel as a young man and forgives him. So your thoughts on Wilson and Vanessa, and then what happened with him as Kingpin here ruling things?
I think one of the things where the show does fall, I do agree with both of you about the issue with supporting characters. Where I usually disagree with Johnny is I don't think it's a matter of we need to spend more time with anybody. And I think with Vanessa and Wilson, we're spending way too much time. I don't understand what the tension is. I get he left. She got upset that he left. She slept with Adam. She took over as Kingpin. Yeah. He came back and said, you can't be Kingpin anymore. And she's frustrated by that. I got all that like by the end of the first episode, second episode. That's the tension. The tension is she wants shit to do. She's a fucking power player. I don't like right now. This was a last episode. At least you had like, okay, they're not getting along. There's some tension. Now they're getting along. They're working things out. They're having discussions. But I'm like, where is this going? I don't know. So it's just like every scene with them was just kind of flat. And I guess the tension was, oh, he's lying about Adam, but like,
Right.
yeah, okay, yeah, it was shocker.
Kingpin.
So like, the idea that he's trying to become the mayor and trying to do things the right way, and Vanessa feels like she doesn't have anything to do now and she wants more, she wants this, like there's something there, and I'm hoping it all pays off, but we're just in this sort of lag where you're like, okay, like it's like they just don't really know where, oh well, we're saving this for like later in the season, or see, like they're just in this like kind of hole of like, I don't need to watch them in therapy. Like yes, the reveal that Vanessa had these issues with her dad, and that really, and Wilson leaving triggered her, and like she, like there's interesting stuff there, but the problem with therapy scenes is that what ends up happening is what happens in this episode, which is, as opposed to two people having a dynamic conversation and you learn something about their past, you end up having someone go, so why did you feel that way? Well, I felt that way because my father, and now I will explain it to you. Oh, that's very interesting. Well, Wills, I didn't know that, Vanessa. And you're like, cool, lovely conversation, not dramatic at all. So it's kind of, that's how I felt about that. What I liked about the rest of the Wilson story is I really liked thematically that Wilson and Matt both at opposite ends of the city are dealing with the fact that they are unable to do the things they want to do given the way the system works. That Wilson Fisk, look, yes, he wants to union bust and he wants to do this, but he wants to build this area into this really nice thing. Yes, that's gentrification. Yes, there's a lot of issues with that, but he wants to do this thing, and the red tape is preventing him from doing it. And then Matt Murdock, both with White Tiger's niece and with Mr. Fiddlefaddle, he's dealing with people who the system has not worked for them. Like White Tiger was found not guilty. The system said, you're good. He still got killed. Fiddlefaddle over here was really great because like Matt kind of comes in, he's like, look, you broke the law, I don't know what to tell you. But the speech that guy gives is actually one of the better written moments of the episode, where he's like, yeah, I stole Fiddlefaddle.
You're jumping the gun.
No money.
You're jumping
sorry,
the gun.
Sorry. Sorry, I'll jump. I'll get to that. But like, so anyways, I like that both Wilson's story and Matt's story kind of dealt with those things. So I liked watching that stuff, but it just, all of these things feel like they're going at a snail's pace. As much as I enjoyed watching D'Onofrio's uncomfortability listening to children sing "We Built This City," it's like everything that's happening, I'm like, okay, like when the audience is like, okay, I get it, let's move to the next thing now. That's not a good place to be, and that's what this episode really felt like for me.
What about the Daniel stuff? Anything to say on that before I get turn over to Shannon?
It was fine. I think he's fine as an actor, and I like the Sheila Daniel dynamic, that she represents the system the way it is. He represents, I'm young and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I just want to go I'm a loyal follower to you. I like that dynamic. But again, I was kind of like, okay, cool. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's reinforcing that story of someone who kisses the butt of the person in power, and they seem to move up the chain quickly because the loyalty is more valued than experience, right? It's an interesting situation. Shannon, your thoughts on the stuff we got? You hinted at your issues with Wilson and Vanessa, but what more can you add to that, and the scenes with Daniel and We Built This City on Rock and Roll? And what's going on with Red Hook? What are your speculations?
I mean, the therapy just kind of feels like they're treading water right now, and you're waiting for this big revelation. And Vanessa saying that thing about her dad, it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's happened. In terms of the story, it's like that doesn't really move us forward that much. It's just not being presented in the most dynamic way. And again, there's nothing wrong with anyone's performances, just what they're being given to do. It's just not that interesting right now. Right. Him having to sit there and listen to We Built the City on Rock and Roll, two different versions, one sung by children, one sung by Latvians. That was absolutely hilarious. And if this episode is a part of sort of like the former iteration, I can get where people would get like, this is a comedy. This doesn't feel like Daredevil. In an isolated moment like this, I thought that comedy worked really, really well. And as the teacher says, hey, for our next piece, no. I mean, that was just handled so well. in terms of Daniel, if he didn't come off as such kind of like a goober, I would find his character a little more interesting. Again, and this has nothing to do with Michael Gandolfini's acting. This is what he's being given to do. This is the second time that he's fucked up as a result of his association with BB.
Yeah,
this guy is a liability. Like, I don't believe that Kingpin would keep this guy around just because he's kissing his ass, because he is continuing to endanger his operations. The whole thing with Red Hook, I mean, I'm guessing that's maybe where our finale is going to take place at some point. It's frustrating because Vincent D'Onofrio is so good in this role, and we just want to see him to have better material to work with right now.
That's a fair point. Yeah, the Vanessa, I agree with you guys. The Vanessa and Wilson stuff's a little draggy, which is frustrating. Adam being caged underneath, who didn't see that coming? Of course. Then the idea of talking about forgiveness. But Michael, you hit on something that I like about this particular episode, even though it is kind of a 50-50 episode. You said the idea that they're both struggling against a corrupt system from two different sides, and they're frustrated by it. And eventually it's going to lead to them, it seems like, going back to it, because Matt getting on the rooftop doing the baton, that's not an accident, and Wilson having Adam caged is in essence
both of them at the end kind of are coming back to their place. I will say what I do like about it though is there's a lot of discussion of corruption, particularly with the police force, but what both Matt and Fisk are dealing with in this episode is not the corruption of the system. They're just dealing with the impossibility of the system. Like what Wilson Fisk is dealing with is not you have to grease pockets to get what you want. He's dealing with you have to do this and you have to give it to the planner, and then the planner has to do this and the EPA has to come. And what Matt is dealing with, which we'll get to in a minute in more detail, but what Matt is dealing with the cop, with White Tiger, yes, the system's corrupt, but with the guy who stole the fiddle faddle, it's just the system doesn't care. Like, you broke a law, you have to pay. And like, if you were a rich kid who shoplifted, guess what? You wouldn't get in trouble. Like that, like it's like, so the unfairness of the system and the way it works, but it's not even corruption. It's just the system itself doesn't allow what this entire show, what I do think this show does really well, hopefully overall, is this whole show is this is why we need vigilantes. This is why we need the people outside the system. This is why we need who's going to watch the watcher. So if anything, this is a show that says, hey, you should break the law if the law isn't working for you. I'm not saying that that's what I agree with, but in the world of superheroes and vigilantism, that is the case that's being made here.
Yeah, the show seems to be moving to, if you have to break the system, or you have to work outside the system in order to get success. I hear your point. It's just the way I look at it. Unfairness is the corruption. The red tape stuff is the corruption, because that's all set up so that people get their pockets lined. And even the system thing, which we're going to get to here, is a bit of the corruption as well. But let's get to it. Yeah, so let's move to the Matt Murdock Daredevil, and we'll break this into two sections. I want to deal with the Leroy stuff separately, then the Frank Castle stuff. So this is the case of the week, in essence, for Matt Murdock, as Mike was alluding to. Leroy Bradford, he is guilty of stealing fiddle faddle or crunch and munch. It's caramel corn, whatever it may be. But the episode, to me, is trying to make some, at times, ham-handed point about a system that is willing to lock up poor people rather than help them, even though Leroy is really unsympathetic as he keeps pushing for probation because A, he's guilty, and A, he's a repeat offender. It's an interesting situation to watch as a viewer, because he's not a clean person. It's like you can't. He's not a person who's been unfairly arrested or whatever. He did what he did. It's just his point is that the system is corrupt. So this furthers Matt's feeling about the situation. As you said, Michael doesn't care or is corrupt, and he deals with that. And he's also dealing with the shame of Hector's death and that situation that goes up for him, and dealing with facing Hector's niece after what they had the conversation about overall. And he uses his senses to see that Powell didn't kill Hector. So now he has to find out who killed Hector, which will lead us into the second section. So, Shannon, your thoughts on the Leroy Bradford stuff, your thoughts on this storyline. Did it work for you? Did it make sense to you? Do you think they were going a little too ham-handed, or was it an effective storyline for you as a viewer?
No, I thought it worked. I didn't get a ham-handed feeling from it, because based off of when they are talking about Leroy's rap sheet, the fact that he is a repeat offender, they're not talking about. And again, maybe I missed it, but it doesn't sound like he is a violent offender.
Not at all.
lot
It's
of
all
this is
just
petty. A lot of this is petty theft, and a
yeah.
lot of this he's doing these things to survive. And it's kind of the Jean Valjean argument. I mean, you know, he stole so he could eat. So, and I thought the actor who played him, like, he's not listed in IMDb, but I thought the actor who played him was absolutely outstanding because that opening salvo with Matt, like, yeah, he isn't likable. Like, this is an unhappy guy, and then kind of trying to bite the hand that's trying to help him, but he's been through this situation before with someone that he presumes is probably a public defender, and it's just like, yep, you're not here to help me. You're here I'm something to check off your list. And it's only in the second scene where he talks about the fact that, yeah, he's like, I wanted something nice, I wanted something sweet. Finally, I wanted a dessert, and they're willing to spend way more money to lock me up than to just help me. Like, I thought that scene was so well done, and I'm really curious how this storyline is going to play itself out. The stuff with White Tiger's niece, I mean, again, that's people talk about, like, oh, she's going to be White Tiger. It's like, I don't know, well, it's kind of like the kid that they cast as Eli in Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's like, he's not becoming big. Like, that's probably not going to happen. Like, typically when you cast someone, it's like when they recast Cassie Lang from Endgame to Quantum Mania. Like, when you want someone to be in your universe, more than likely you're not going to bump someone up from JV to varsity. You're going to find a different actor. That being said, I thought the young actor who played the niece was great. And in that great kind of like little isolated moment, she was very, very effective. Matt's dynamic with Powell, I love. Like, I really like that guy, and I hope we continue to see more and more of him. Like, this is a guy who is not afraid to beat up on a blind man. Like, there are no depths this guy won't sink to in the name of what he considers to be law and order, but also because of his family. Like, this is, my grandfather did this, my father did this, my brother does this, my cousins do this. I love that dynamic that they have, and that last line that Matt gets in where he's just kind of like, hey, well, if you want to do this again, better bring more guys than last time. Like, that was just such a chef's kiss line. So I did think Matt's stuff was definitely the stronger. But I know we're going to get to the really good stuff in a second. So
absolutely. Michael, your thoughts on the Leroy Bradford situation? Did it work for you, or was it a little bit ham-handed in its approach?
No, it worked for me. I mean, I think even the stuff that I really like thematically in this show so far, all of it is like, could have been judged, could have been handled with a little bit more nuance, kind of across the board. I think that's true. That being said, I really liked everything that's here. I liked what he was bringing up. I think that, I actually disagree with Shannon a little bit. I don't think that, like, this is the Jean Valjean situation. I don't think they set Leroy up to be, oh, he's just a good guy. Like, he's got a huge rap sheet. He's broken the law. He probably is a violent offender. Like he probably has done. Like, I don't think they tried to go out of their way to make any bones that, like, this is a good criminal, not a bad one. I think the case that they were making is, this is a criminal. But like many criminals, violent and otherwise, our system and the way it works doesn't necessarily help and make things better. And I think that in the terms of what Matt's story is here, what's really going on, and it's with White Tiger's niece and with Leroy, is I think ever since Foggy died and he stopped being Daredevil, he's like, I'm going to be like what Foggy was. I'm going to be a good lawyer, and I'm going to work with it. Like, if you watched Daredevil, the series, and they kind of touched on it in the brief minute that we got with Foggy before he got killed, Foggy was always like, I don't like that you do this, Matt. I don't like that you're Daredevil. I don't like that you go fight people. We're lawyers, and we work within the system, and that's how we do things. And I think what we're seeing here is Matt trying desperately to do that. And with both White Tiger's niece and Leroy, he is faced with the fact that this is, like, the best he's going to get is, you're going back in jail for 10 days. And he's like, this is a win. And Leroy's entire speech is like, fuck you, it's not a win. So I think that what we're seeing here in terms of the bigger arc for Matt is, what you're doing doesn't work. And I think that's what Wilson deals with too. What you're doing, it's going to take you. It's like the fucking rail system in California that we were supposed to get 10 years ago that we're not going to get for 30 years. Like Red Hook's never going to be what Wilson Fisk wants it to be. It's impossible. So like for both of them, they're dealing with that. Two quick things. One, I loved when Leroy was like, what if it was a scroll that was on the tape?
Yeah.
That was a great line. Very made me laugh. The other thing is, how does Matt Murdock have more chemistry with that Latvian woman than he does with Heather? How in that one scene with that Latvian woman and him flirting with her to sort of get the sentence down, I was like, well, the sparks are flying here.
Yeah.
Why am I so bored anytime he's talking to Heather?
I think that was it? Who was the actor? I can't remember the name of the character, but yeah, I thought you were 100% right. They had a nice back and forth negotiating the sentence for Leroy, that was good. But I take your point, Mike, and I agree. The judging is where I have an issue because I've seen this storyline played out so many times in different shows, different movies, whatever. So to me, if you're gonna do it, you got to do it justice, as I've said with so many of these racial issues or social commentary or dirty police issues they're trying to make in any of these Marvel shows or Disney shows or movies. And it's frustrating because I want more. Unfortunately, this is not the canvas for me to get that more clearly in this situation. And so you see it in the back forth with Leroy. There's something much more nuanced should be happening here. And we don't go back to Leroy after he's sentenced in this episode. So it's just in my mind, I would like to have had the whole focus should have been this should have been the whole focus of the storyline of the episode. And instead they dealt with it, made their commentary about it. Isn't it unfair how the police are going to eat the caramel corn right in front of you that you just stole and they don't get in any trouble, but you do, and all of this stuff, and they don't help and they don't care. And Matt not turning it back. But again, it also is like pushing Matt towards being a vigilante again, using someone else's storyline to push Matt to become Daredevil again. And it just
I mean, that is literally how writing works. Like you have a main character and you create other characters to push them in. Like they're using Frank Castle to get Matt Murdock back to being Daredevil as well. Like, so everyone in the show is there to push Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk to be back to where they're going to be. So I don't think you can ding the show for doing that.
Well, I ding it as the concept of a social commentary. That's where the dinging for me happens. So with like Hector's death, that's the issues that I have. It's like making the commentary to push him back to this thing is where it gets muddled for me personally. But it's a matter of perspective on subjectivity on that. But speaking of the Frank Castle, Mike, let's go back to you. That's the big thing. Frank Castle makes his appearance here. John Bernthal swaggering like a mofo all through this episode here, and they go at it. Oh my God, did they go at it in this particular episode here? As we hear more, I mean, Frank mentions Foggy to try to mess with him. They battle over their dual visions of justice with each man knowing the other's past mistakes and fumbles, even a cursory reference to season 2 and Matt's actions in season 2 of Daredevil. They fight, and Frank is basically just trying to tell him that if he keeps working within a rigged system, he will never win. And later that night, that leads to and he also calls him out, saying that Matt hates himself for what happened to Foggy, and he has a violent nature, but he hates his violent nature, and he needs to embrace it more. Because of course, what else would the Punisher tell you to do? And then it leads to Matt working his baton there while Heather is sleeping down below in his apartment on the rooftop. So, Michael, your thoughts on this sequence of events?
It's just a great scene. Like, they're both amazing. Like, they're both amazing in these roles. They were both acting the shit out of the scene. So, like, it was a great scene in and of itself. But also, it was just really clear. And to your point, although I don't necessarily always agree with your issues about the social commentary and the characters being used, I do agree that the show is just muddled in general. And so when you do get a scene like this where it's very just clear. And basically, it's like I was saying, like, ever since Foggy's death, he's stopped being Daredevil. And you could say he's trying to be more like Foggy. I mean, he even says to Frank in this scene, like, Foggy's a better person than both of us. Like, in his mind, in his Catholic guilt brain, he's like, I am going to put Daredevil away. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to work in the system. I'm going to do this. Frank Castle is the opposite extreme. He's more extreme than Daredevil is. Like even when Matt Murdock is Daredevil, he doesn't go as far as Frank. So you got Foggy at one end, or the the memory of Foggy at one end. And at the other end, you've got Frank Castle being like, yeah, counselor, system's doing great. Thank you so much for your fucking service. He's basically like, you're doing nothing and you hate yourself and you're racked with guilt and you're completely ineffectual. And so like, it's almost like they represent like the angel and devil on the shoulders, except that all of us want him to go more towards we don't want him to go all the way to Frank Castle. But again, in a show that basically the underlying idea of the show is the system doesn't work, be a vigilante. Frank Castle is the extreme. The Punisher is the extreme of that. But in the case of this show, he's more right than wrong. And so it was a really fun scene. And it was the first time that he got Matt to break down and admit that he's holding all this stuff in. That Matt is so racked with Matt has so much rage. And he's trying to keep it inside because he's trying to be something that he's not. And even when he like finally like smacks Frank in the face, he instantly apologizes. So it's like what we've seen is, and it's the same as the scene with the two cops that we talked about a couple weeks ago, where it's like Matt went out of his way to try and not fight until the gun was drawn, and then like he wailed on them, and then he felt guilty about it because he's like anytime he lets it out, he feels guilty, but he can't keep it inside because it's killing him. It's eating him up inside, and he wants to just let it out. So it was a great scene. Like everything that the two of them did was awesome, and it was clear, and it was focused, and the writing was on point, and you got what it was about, and it got Matt to a new, where Matt came in at the beginning and where Matt left was two different places for the character. So everything about it worked really, really well.
Yeah, what'd you think, Shannon? Do you agree with Mike? It was pretty clear, pretty concise of what was going on here and these battling philosophies. And did you like the twists and turns it took with Frank being confronting him? Yeah.
This is a scene that I will go back and revisit time and time again. Much like that first scene that they had together in season 2, where he had Matt kind of tied up on the roof of that building. That is a scene. That episode, I went back to it all the time, just watching these two kind of titans, slug it out. Like there are moments that the casting and the chemistry is just perfect. And Charlie Cox doesn't just have it with Vincent D'Onofrio. He's also got it with Jon Bernthal. Watching how Frank has kind of, I don't know if I would say evolved, but the way he's changed a little bit, that he's become a little bit of like a mole person, that he's hiding out in this basement and does just kind of like, I'm just going to hang out here. I'm going to grow my beard, let my hair grow out. Watching Matt struggle with with the guilt of Foggy and with what he inherently wants to do, but he feels like he shouldn't do because it's dishonoring the memory of his friend. So dynamic. Jon Bernthal brings so much to this role, like this primal yell that as he runs and pins Matt against the wall. He's got carrying a freaking hatchet. I mean, these guys are just so good together. And Matt kind of confronting him with the fact that, like, look at what logo is on this bullet, and it's like, oh, a bunch of wannabes out there. There was just so much electricity in this scene, and I hope we get more of that. I hope we get more of that in the future. And you don't have to be a movie star to have chemistry. So the Leroy actor is actually on IMDb. It's Charlie Hudson III. He and Charlie Cox, great chemistry. The Latvian law clerk, her name is Elizabeth A. Davis. Lots of chemistry. When you get that right pairing, it just leaps off the screen, and that's what we want to see going forward. And I believe that Jon Bernthal was not associated with the former version, so this seems like it's a new scene. So I think that is where the muddledness comes from. It is a little bit of a Franken show right now, and hopefully once they get to this primary new version, that muddledness that you all have been speaking about, that hopefully that will sort of recede into the background. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike. You want to say one more thing?
Well, it's just like, it's about like, because a lot of times we talk about, and again, John, although I don't always agree with him, sometimes I do, is always like, we need more time, we need more stuff with these characters. There's also a case to be made for like trimming the fat and for stuff we don't need. Because like what happens here is we got this amazing scene with Frank Castle and Matt, which is basically Frank Castle being like, what you're doing is bullshit. You know what you want to do. You're coming here for permission to do the thing that you want to do. Then Matt goes back to the apartment, has a nothing burger scene with like she shows up, she's standing there, she's like, waited up, worried about you, thought you got kidnapped. And he's like, how was work? And she's like, had some clients. If I tell you about them, I got to kill you. And they go to bed. And then he's lying in bed with the cross on his chest and he's listening to the city and he gets up and you get to the ending scene. If you had taken out that Heather scene and it didn't exist and you went from Frank Castle saying, you're coming here for permission, you know what you want to do, whatever, and you just cut to Matt in bed listening to the city and then getting up, that works so much better. Like when you're writing, sometimes like the biggest part of writing is trimming stuff out. You're like, this is unnecessary. I do not need this. And I think that's where I really got. But then the end, one thing I just wanted to say before we wrapped it all up is I did enjoy at the end of the first episode, we had Wilson Fisk on top of the building looking at the city and Matt Murdock down in the crowd. So you sort of had like one of them up high and the other down low. And here you flipped it so that as Matt is slowly coming back to, I'm going to let the devil out, he takes his stuff, he goes up to the roof. Whereas we have Wilson descending into his dungeon with his rabbit in a snowstorm painting that he still has the blood on from the end of season 3 of Daredevil. And then as opposed to eating the egg whites and the stuff that he eats, he's eating like this hearty meal in front of Adam. So I did like that inverse moment. I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, I love this chemistry between Bernthal and Charlie Cox, as you alluded to, Shannon. It's electric. When you're watching really great actors go at it and go back and forth, you discover so much nuance even within a scene where they're yelling at each other. And he did more therapy for Matt than anything Heather has done for Vanessa and Wilson. Like he just got right to the chase and said, this is the only therapy Matt will sit down and get is with Frank. And I think he went there not just to tell him about the bullet. I think he also went there to maybe have this argument with Frank, because if there's anyone that can go toe-to-toe with Matt, kind of put him in his place, as you referenced that season 2 scene, Shannon, it has always been Frank who's been the counter to Matt's do-goodery type of approach to things, and also his a Catholic or Christian approach to things, his God's approach to things. Frank has always been the counter to it, and he's even more ruthless now. He's even more brutal now. Yes, he's changing that he's hiding out in this, but the ferocity with which he meets Matt, I think, is so fantastic and so important, as you said, Michael, to push Matt to that point where he finally becomes Daredevil. And it's no coincidence that he's out messing with a baton right after that interaction with Frank. As I said, better therapy than Heather is delivering to Vanessa and Wilson. But you're right. Good ending. Both of them moving closer to who they really are. It's nice to try to be something else, but when your inherent core of who you are is who you are, you can't deny it in the end. And it seems like that's what we're leading to as we end episode 4 here and go into episode 5 next week. That's our spoiler review for this particular episode of Daredevil Born Again. Thank you all so much for watching this episode and this review. Anything more we want to say, or shall we wrap up, gentlemen? Good to go?
Well, let's see. We'll see where things go. The parts that I like.
Very eloquently said. Shannon, what do we have to tell our fine people who are listening to us or watching us here on the channel?
If you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
And Mikey, what do we have to tell him as well?
Go ahead and smash that like button. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he has got over there. Leave your comments below. What do you think of the most hotly anticipated animated film of all time, Acme versus Coyote? What do you think of the trailers? What do you think of Colin Farrell as Sergeant Rock and as the Penguin? And Shannon's clear excitement about it, and Daredevil. Let us know in the comments below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, go ahead and leave us some stars and comments as we open the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. Thank you all so much. Again, take care of yourselves. Be well. We'll see if there'll be a second episode later on this week. We'll see. We're trying to figure out schedules and all that, but we delivered this one to you, so we hope you enjoyed. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of The
Geek
Buddies!
Oh, wait, before we do that, don't forget about Magic Mind, right, Shannon? We have to do that as well. You have a limited offer here you can use now. They get you up to 40% off your first subscription or 20% off your one-time purchase with code BUDDIES20 at checkout. You can claim it at magicmind.com/BUDDIES. And now back to our regularly scheduled program.